I'm going to be going over projects, how to create projects, and the basic data entry needed for projects. So you can see here that we're starting from the opportunity page. The reason we're starting from the opportunity page is we need to first create our project. You should only create the project once you're very sure the customer is ready to start. Let's say the last time you talked to the customer, they said, "Oh yeah, I'll be ready in July." Don't create the project in advance. There's no reason to do that. You should only create the project if the start date is tomorrow or maybe next week. If you're sure you and the customer are both ready to start. And if a customer tells you I'll be ready in July, there's no way to know if they're really going to be ready to start in July. So before the customer's actually ready to start, the start date helps you remember, hey, when did this customer tell me they'd be ready? Or when did I promise this customer we would start? So in this case, this customer has told me, Ryan said, yeah, I'm going to be ready to start today. I've confirmed I'm ready to begin, so I'm going to create project and stages. Now you can create a project only. I would generally not do this. I would create the project with the first installment stages, and then later you can create the second installment stages. So what are the stages, you might be wondering? Well, if we go to project, created by the system right here. Okay, so that's what it means when it says first installment stages, so that's everything up to varnishing, and second installment stages. Varnishing, varnish drying, final evaluation. So you can see here, if I go to the project, I've only got 5 stages up to screeding and screed drying right now. If I go back to the opportunity, and I create the second set of stages, you can see here, well, now I've got 8 stages, right? Everything. Okay. So now we need to talk about what's actually on the project page. But before we do that, I want to also discuss how to get to a project. The way that I got to a project was I went to an opportunity, right? I was on the opportunity, then I hovered here, and I clicked the project I found. There are other ways to do it. You can also go to the work management application, and it'll take you directly to projects, and it'll show you whatever project you were recently viewing. Okay? Then I could also go to reports, and I could go to a report on construction status, maybe. And you can see from this report, I could go into a bunch of different projects. Okay? So either from the report, from the opportunity, or from the work management application. So now that you're on the project, there are only 4 sections that you're seeing here? Well, 5. The 5th being the details. Everything here, and everything down here is automatically updated by the system. So you don't need to worry about populating this data. The system is going to do that automatically. Additionally, if you want, in Feed, you can see all the recent work that's been done on a project. You can see all that information in Feed. So apart from the details of the project itself, there's the products consumed, stages, timesheet entries, and floors, or assets. Now, it's important to understand that in this video, we're not going to be talking about timesheet entries or assets. Timesheet entries are specific to Rwanda and they're input by the DM. We're going to save that for another video. Floors, assets, those are automatically created by the system. Users don't have permission to create a new asset, and they don't have permission to edit any assets. So don't worry about these two. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to update stages first, and then second, we're going to talk about how to input products consumed. Okay, so first, let's go to an example stage. We're going to go to material delivery. On any given stage, the pieces of data you need to input are the status, the start date and the end date, and using service appointments, you need to assign masons. Let me go through each of these individual options one by one. First, status. Status is the status. The status should either be new, in progress, complete, or on hold. These two, you do input them sometimes. And even on hold is generally input by the system. You, the user, should usually focus on in progress, complete, or new. So an important thing to understand is that when you update a stage to in progress, it impacts the start date. It doesn't make sense to mark a stage as in progress 3 weeks after you've already started. Instead, you should only be marking a stage as in progress when you've actually started it. As a result, the system assumes, in order to help you update the dates, that when you say something is in progress, the start date is at that time. And you can see here, a problem is going to occur if I try to say that this is in progress. The automation is going to change the date and time to right now, but you can see the end date is the same day and earlier, right? So maybe I'm going to change the end date to tomorrow. Now the system is going to say that's fine because 4 o'clock or 11 o'clock on the 28th is before this end date, so that's okay. Now, if I change the status to complete, that updates the end date. The system is also going to say that's okay, because the start date and end date can be equal, they can be the same date and time, but the end date can't be before the start date, right? So, those automations are important to keep in mind when you're updating stages. If you keep something in progress for too long, or you want to override automations, that's when these fields come into play. These fields are for advanced or more advanced Salesforce users. If you're a beginner, all you need to worry about for now is the status field, the start date, and the end date. Okay? So we're going to change this back to in progress. And we can see everything's okay. We'll talk about these fields in a moment. But I first want to get through the beginner pieces. The other beginner piece is assigning Masons to stages. So, in order to assign Masons, you should use service appointments. All you have to do, because the system automatically creates service appointments, is you go to the Mason delivery service appointment that the system automatically creates, and you assign a Mason. So I'm going to assign Ryan Conlon, who is not a real Mason, but it works for this example. If you want to assign a second Mason, create a new service appointment. I'm going to put in my subject. I'm going to assign my Mason. Now these fields are required by Salesforce, but they don't matter. So you can put in any date you want. It does not matter. Just put in the same date. These two fields, like I said again, they're required by Salesforce, but they don't matter. If you're making a new service appointment, the only fields you should care about is Mason assigned. Subject also, but Mason assigned is the most important. Okay, so now you can see I've assigned 2 Masons. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some of the more advanced things you can do on a stage. So the first advanced thing you should understand about a stage is the mandatory on-hold date. If you keep a stage in progress for too long, the system is going to automatically update the status to on hold. The system is going to think, well, if material delivery took 6 days, something is holding up this construction. And so it changes the status to on hold. And you can see this is the mandatory on hold date. On the 4th of May, the system is going to automatically make that change. What about these down here? Well, these override system automations. So let's say that you don't want the system to change the dates when you're changing the status. Well, now I can check this, and now I can change the status to anything I want. I can change it to complete. I can change it back to in progress. The start and end date aren't affected by the status if you check this box. Similarly, if you check override on hold automation, if you check this box, the system will never change this stage to on hold. So if I checked this day could come and go and the system wouldn't do anything. So if you want to stop the system from running those automations, you have that option right here. The final advanced piece of the stage is the feed. So if you want to leave comments about what's going on with a particular stage, if you want to say, this stage is delayed because the customer needed to move furniture. And you could share that, and now this is an update that anyone could come and see. And it'll even display on reports. So that can be a helpful way from the feed to update information. So those are the capabilities of Stages, the simple capabilities as well as some more complicated capabilities. Like I said, if you're a beginner, remember the most important things that you have to understand and you have to do, you have to keep the status up to date, you have to keep the start date and the end date up to date, and you have to assign a Mason, or maybe multiple Masons, okay? As you get more comfortable, then maybe you start using these features or you start making comments. So now that we're back at the project, you're probably wondering about this flow. Create new stages. Why would you want to create new stages? You already have all the stages here. Well, the reason we want to create new stages is because we might need to do repairs or redos on the house, or we might need to apply epoxy. In all of these cases, you can manually create extra stages right here. When you input a new stage, you have to input a start and end date, and of course, the start date has to be before the end date. Now, what about this field right here? Well, if you're doing a repair, a redo, if you're applying epoxy, it might be the case that you're only applying epoxy to half of the floor, right? So this floor is 10 square meters. So this field right here allows you to tell the system, I'm only applying epoxy to 5 square meters or 7 square meters. If you leave it blank, the system is going to assume you're applying epoxy or you're repairing all 10 square meters. So let's say I need to do some minor repairs, but I only need to do these repairs on 3 square meters. I click Next. Stage has been created. Click Finish. And you can see then when you click Finish, the stage has been added. And when I go to that stage, what do I see? 3 square meters, right? So the system remembered, oh, for this one, you're only applying 3 square meters. And I could even add more stages. I could add epoxy application. This allows you a lot of flexibility. The next point we want to talk about for inputting data on projects is how to input products consumed. So in this case, we're going to say we need to move laterite to this project. So the example we're using is laterite. Well, putting in a product consumed, so a lot of these won't be available to you or shouldn't be available to you, but if they are, always select product consumed. Those shouldn't be available to you though. You should only have one option. Okay, so once you open a product consumed, the first thing you need to input is how much. So in this case, we know it's laterite. So we'll say 1 cubic meter of laterite. Maybe that's too much, maybe it's too little. It's just an example. And then you need to put in the date that it's going to be distributed. So on what date did you move this laterite? So we're going to say it's today. So I'm going to move 1 cubic meter of laterite. Now, you also might need to indicate if this is for repair. Now, an important point to make sure that you understand is these 4 fields right here are very simple. Okay? Is it a repair? Is it not a repair? How much is, what is the quantity and what is the date? And this field is auto-filled by the system. Product item is the most important field in a lot of ways. They're all important, but it's I shouldn't say most important, it's very important. But it's also more complicated than the others because you need to know the product item, and a lot of times the product item that you're looking for might be difficult to find. So how do you make sure you find the product item that you're going to move laterite from? Well, what you should have open if you're moving laterite or any product to a customer, you should have your stock levels report open. So every district has a stock levels report. It's on the supply chain dashboard. I could go to any district, and if I look in the inventory reports, I'm going to find the stock levels. Okay? So in this example, we're going to use Jinja as our example. Jinja, the district of Uganda. So like I said it'd be in inventory reports, right? And then we see stock levels right there. So to be very clear, once again, if you're inputting a product consumed, you should have 2 tabs open. You shouldn't just have 1 tab open and be trying to remember, oh, which product consumed is it? Is it 354? Is it 657? You're going to drive yourself crazy. What you should have is you should have a second tab open. And this way you can remember which place was I going to move the laterite from. This is really, really helpful for a couple of reasons. First of all, my numbers are right here, so that makes it easier to remember which number. Second of all, I can easily see quantity on hand. Okay, so for this project, right, the quantity consumed is 1. But let's say I wanted to consume 2 cubic meters of laterite. Well, if I'm planning on moving it from this product item, the system's going to reject that and say, no, that's not possible. Look, we'll even try it. Quantity consumed is greater than the available amount at the product item. Not possible. Okay, so it's good to have this report open to remember the product item number and to have the quantity. However, there's a third very important reason why it's good to have this report open. Sometimes you can search for a product item and not find it. Okay? What do I mean? Well, let's say that we want to take this back down to 1. Let's say that we want to move laterite from Nakabale. Okay? Well, let's find our friend Nakabale here. Here we go. So you say, okay, I've got my report open, and I put in PI 1901. Nothing comes up, right? Why is nothing coming up? The reason is because Salesforce displays here the product items that you've recently opened. That's true with every single linking field. So if you're linking a product item to a product consumed, if you're linking the project, right? Let's say I clicked X here. What's the first project that comes up here? It's the project that I was just looking at, right? So PI 1901, I haven't been looking at that product item recently, right? And that's why the system might be having trouble finding it. Now, one thing you can do is you can click this spyglass right here. But even in this window, Salesforce is searching for the product items I've recently seen. Okay, even in this window, that's what Salesforce is doing. It's saying, okay, I'm going to look through all your recently viewed product items. And what is the system saying? No results. And when you see no results, you might get a little overwhelmed and you might think, but I'm seeing it right here. What's the problem? Like I said, the problem is you haven't opened that product item in a long time and Salesforce is having trouble finding it. So what do? Simple. Click right there. And now that you've looked at it recently, I guarantee you, let's see if we can find it now. Okay, it's not coming up initially, but try when you don't want, the other thing to do is try reloading pages, right? Don't panic right away if it's not coming up. So maybe you would say, oh, Ryan, I did what you said and it's not coming up. Well, try reloading the page and see if it works then. See, I reloaded the page. I gave the system a moment to catch up and it found what it was looking for. You've got to give the system time. There's a lot of data in there. Before you assume something isn't working, always try reloading the page or giving the system a moment, okay? Don't assume something isn't working. Well, now we have all our information together. PI 1901, we see 4.5 on hand, so it can definitely move 1, right? Click Save. And I'm all done. And I have my product consumed right here. So those are the key pieces of data, stages and product consumed, that you need to be putting in if you are going to be inputting data on a project.